July 11th, 2013, the WWE opened its Performance Center in Orlando, Florida. The inaugural class at the Performance Center was an eclectic mix of personalities. Independent standouts occupied the same space as athletic outsiders, each of them vying for the same goal, a shot at the big time in WWE, after first proving their mettle in WWE's development stage known as NXT. On or around the time that the PC opened, around 70 inhabitants, including trainers, administrators, and wrestling hopefuls, got together for a rather amazing group photo. Included in the shot are wrestlers who've gone on to bigger days in WWE's promised land, while others washed out of the company after barely making a dent. In between, there are those who just didn't make good on their apparent potential. Each of their stories are unique and truly run the gamut of possibilities. As a challenge to ourselves at Cultaholic, we're going to look back at every single person in this photo, talk about their life inside WWE's realm at the time, and reveal where they all ended up. Mason Ryan, Stevie Ray, Earthquake, Alundra Blaze, Norman Smiley, Zach Gowen, Bam Bam Bigelow, Ahmed Johnson, Torrey Wilson, Buff, Bagwell, Robert Gibson, Dave Taylor, Terry Taylor, and Godfather's Holmes. Dwayne Gill, Adam Bomb, Michael Hayes, Cor Von, S.A. Rios, Jim Manai, the manager from Kai and Tai, Jim Powers, Francine, Jack Swagger, Mean Gene, Fat Chick Thriller, Duke the Dumpster, Oklahoma Manta. What happened to that wrestler? Some were main eventing, which leaves me lamenting. What happened to that wrestler? Some since long forgotten, but their memories live on. Oliver Gray. As one half of British Ambition, Gray helped comprise the inaugural NXT Tag Team Champions in 2013, before he and his partner, whom we'll get to, dropped the gold to the Wyatt family. Gray was released from WWE in April 2014 and still wrestles today as Joel Redman, having competed in All Japan's 2019 Real World Tag League. Big Cass. After well establishing both his approximate height and the fact that it can't be taught, Cass went on to enjoy a 2-year run on the main roster beginning in April 2016. After being released from WWE in June 2018, Cass has returned to the indie scene, where issues regarding his physical and mental health have sadly jeopardized his career. Stephen Good. A powerhouse offensive lineman from the University of Oklahoma, Good certainly had the physical presence of a squared circle brute, but left WWE by the early part of 2014. Good now works as an account manager for Pollock Aurora, a company specializing in packaging in Grand Prairie, Texas. Bull Dempsey. The heavyweight brawler never did bring his talents to the main roster, and after nearly 3 years in developmental, Dempsey was let go in February 2016. He still wrestles today under the slightly modified handle of Bull James, working in northeastern-based indies like New York Wrestling Connection, and recently toured Japan with the DDT promotion. Bo Dallas. It was a good time to Bo leave and Mike Rotunda's younger son, as Dallas became the NXT champion in 2013, unseating powerhouse Big E Langston for the gold. Dallas is still on the main roster today on the SmackDown brand, though as of this video has not wrestled on TV since the fall of 2019. CJ Parker. After providing the template for Daniel Bryan's 2018 to 2019 run, Parker requested his release from WWE in April 2015, having never made it to the main roster. He presently stars for New Japan Pro Wrestling under the name Juice Robinson, where he's twice held the United States title and reigned as tag team champs once with David Finlay. Buddy Murphy. Though nobody could argue his talent, few would have predicted that the Aussie import was 5 years away from being the unbeatable final boss of the revived WWE Cruiserweight division. Now known simply as Murphy, the ex-Buddy is a disciple of Seth Rollins on the Raw brand and reportedly a favorite of showrunner Paul Heyman. Marcus Louie. A veteran of kickboxing and rugby, Louie had been a professional wrestler since 2005 and signed with WWE in 2013, forming the Legionnaires with fellow Frenchman Sylvester Lefort. After leaving the company in 2016, Louie returned to the ring in 2020 following a hiatus and has gotten into acting, including a role on The Flash as Crucifier. Keith Brown. A former football player in the NFL and Arena League, Brown didn't last too long in WWE developmental, and best records indicate that he never even wrestled a match. The former Temple University standout now resides in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where he's the athletic director at University Training. Wesley Blake. Though he went on to enjoy a solid NXT Tag Team title run alongside Murphy, Blake hasn't had the same success since then and is yet to escape developmental. He remains with NXT as of this video, partnered with Steve Cutler and Jackson Riker as the Forgotten Sons. Scott Dawson. Dawson treaded water in NXT until Dash Wilder came along, and the two officially put their collective tag team expertise together a few years later. Today, Dawson still wrestles with the Revival on the SmackDown brand, though his and Wilder's futures with WWE have come into question following repeated requests for their releases. Sylvester Lefort. This French trainee of Lance Storm, Lefort patrolled NXT as a combination wrestler/manager, later forming the Legionnaires before getting released from the company in February 2016. Lefort, as Tom LaRufa, has since wrestled for Impact Wrestling and presently competes in various European promotions, particularly in his native France. Bayley. Bayley struck gold as soon as she began fleshing out her doe-eyed, over-positive fangirl character, and many projected a stratospheric rise for the natural babyface, so her current persona would certainly surprise 2013 you and I. Bayley and her disengaged heel persona are currently holding the SmackDown Women's title headed into WrestleMania 36. Sasha Banks. It wasn't exactly boss time quite yet, but the hands of time spun closer and closer to Banks becoming one of the truest breakout stars in the early days of NXT. Banks has been on the main roster for nearly 5 years to this point, holding multiple women's titles, and presently wrestles on SmackDown. Simon Gotch. Though it took us in the office a little time to figure out who some people in the photo were, there was no mistaking Gotch's charmingly antiquated moustache as anyone else's. Released from WWE shortly after WrestleMania 33, the now Simon Grimm wrestles for Major League Wrestling, where he's part of the Contra Unit stable. Jake Carter. The real-life son of Leon Vader White finished with WWE later in 2015 and wrestled his most recent match in the spring of that year. Carter collaborated on Kenny Casanova's biography of his legendary father and is a business development manager at MGA Home Care in Dallas. Rusev. The Bulgarian Brute soon carried over his dominant final months in NXT to the main roster, where he suddenly began pledging allegiance to Mother Russia, riding on tanks, and having a daily holiday in his name. Rusev still chugs away on the Raw brand, where his most recent claim to fame was his feud of the decade contender with Bobby Lashley. Knuckles Madsen. The eccentric and colourful Memphis native previously wrestled as Kid Nichols and Killer Nichols through various indies before signing with WWE in 2012, last wrestling for the company in late 2013. Madsen doesn't appear to have wrestled since based on match records, and he now resides in Arkansas. Veronica Lane. Lane's career as a wrestler was hampered by a leg injury, and although she did cross over into ring announcing and backstage interviewer roles, she opted to leave the company in September 2014. Since leaving WWE, Lane has become a personal trainer in New York. Kendall Skye. Skye was with NXT for roughly the same length as Lane, and although her list of live event matches is much higher, she last worked for the company in late summer of 2014. Skye has since worked as a health and fitness coach, as well as a stuntwoman on movies such as Wonder Woman and Mad Max Fury Road. Solomon Crowe. From hacking up foes in CZW to the technological version of hacking, Sami Callihan became Solomon Crowe, sort of Kevin Mitnick meets Robert Smith from The Cure. The talented Callihan didn't last long in WWE, earning his release in November 2015, and is presently a top performer in Impact Wrestling, where he recently held the world title. Braun Strowman. He didn't wrestle his first match until the tail end of 2014, but WWE clearly knew they had something in this beastly strongman, even if it took a couple more years for him to find his booming voice. At press time, the highly popular Strowman resides over on SmackDown and is a recent Intercontinental Champion. Emma. What an unusual WWE run. Dance awkwardly, become a no-nonsense heel, get stuck in an ill-advised beauty loop, revert to your prior character, and then get released. The criminally underused Emma popped up in Ring of Honor shortly after under her real name Tennille Dashwood and currently competes in Impact Wrestling. Shawn Bennett. A referee for the company since 2013, Bennett eventually moved up from developmental to the main roster. He's still with the company today working on the Raw brand and also heads up the crew for setting up the ring for the TV and live events that he works. Cal Bishop. Based on his appearance, it's a little surprising that the burly NCAA heavyweight wrestler didn't make it in WWE. Unfortunately, repeated shoulder injuries led to his exit from the company in 2015. Bishop still wrestles today under the name Cal Jack, primarily on the California indie scene. Kalisto. The longtime Samurai Del Sol made his way to the program in 2013, where tag team, cruiserweight, and United States title reigns each followed, all of them good lucha things. Kalisto is currently over on the SmackDown brand, where he remains a part of the Lucha House Party trio. Alexa Bliss. Bliss was freshly signed to the territory not all that long before Photo Day, with perhaps few realizing how much she'd eventually bring to the table as the snottiest mean girl that you ever went to school with. The 5-time women's champion wrestles on SmackDown, woefully miscast as a babyface. Charlotte Flair. You had to figure she was earmarked for great things due to the family connection, which is to say nothing of her work ethic, obvious star presence, and incredible athletic abilities. NXT included, Flair's held 11 different women's singles titles in WWE, and the Raw brand talent is headed to WrestleMania 36 after winning the 2020 Women's Royal Rumble. Mickie Keegan. This veteran heavyweight of Northeastern Indies seemed to have a viable future, but was unfortunately forced into retirement later in 2013 due to a diagnosis of spinal stenosis. Keegan worked in a creative capacity in NXT for a few months and is now general manager for a vegetarian restaurant called Life Alive. Sami Zayn. El Generico's best friend signed with WWE at the onset of 2013 and made a big splash in NXT later that year, particularly in his high-quality feud with Cesaro. Zayn is on the SmackDown brand these days, where he reigns as Intercontinental Champion. You finally did it, Sami, yes! Slate Randall. Here's one that got away. Randall lasted only about a year, competing pretty much exclusively at house shows before getting ousted in the summer of 2014. Since then, Randall's done well for himself as Eli Drake, the namer of dummies that eventually conquered Impact Wrestling and currently holds the NWA World Tag Team titles with James Storm. Paige. On or around the time of the photo, Paige was in the midst of her unstoppable NXT women's title reign, of which the only antidote was to have her vacate it upon ascending to the main roster in 2014. Retired due to spinal injuries, Paige is now a studio contributor on WWE Backstage. Xavier Woods. By year's end, he'd be usurping Brodus Clay's music and Funkadactyls, and 1 year after that, Woods began a star turn that few realized was a star turn upon the formation of the New Day. Woods remains the most excitable member of the popular trio on SmackDown, though he's currently sidelined with an Achilles injury. Mojo Rawley. The former defensive lineman possessed plenty of upside when he was signed to WWE in 2013, but despite his size and energy, he's never quite been able to pull it all together. Currently on the Raw brand, Rawley is embroiled in the 24/7 title scene, having held the belt 6 times as of this video. Derrick Moore. Another referee with lasting power in WWE, Moore actually made kayfabe headlines when Alicia Fox shoved him during a 2017 episode of Raw, resulting in her being fined. As noted at the start of this entry, Moore remains with the company today, currently assigned to the Raw brand. Becky Lynch. You might have projected big things for Lynch on the main roster, perhaps a title reign or several, but would you have predicted winner of WrestleMania's main event over the most famous female mixed martial artist in the world in 7 years back then? Lynch remains the man today as women's champion on Monday Night Raw. JoJo. JoJo was brought in as an outsider for the Total Divas television series, eventually becoming a ring announcer for NXT and later the main roster shows. She still works for WWE today, assigned to the Raw brand, but is currently on maternity leave after giving birth to the son of Bray Wyatt. Lana. Her entire 6 years on the main roster have in some way involved real-life husband Rusev, whether she was at his side or aligned against him in some form of emasculating angle. As of now, Lana is positioned opposite Rusev, having married Bobby Lashley, and she currently plies her trade over on Raw. Eva Marie. The more maligned half of the Total Divas ringers was an easy target for fan vitriol, which was amplified by the gimmick of not appearing for matches due to some flimsy excuse. Eva Marie left WWE in 2017 and is now the proprietor of NEM Fit Workout, as well as a brand ambassador for Monster Energy. Angelou Dawkins. Dawkins spent over 6.5 years in developmental, 2 of which were spent in the Street Profits alongside partner Montez Ford, before finally getting a call up to the main roster in 2019. Dawkins presently clamors for the smoke over on the Raw brand and is currently one half of the Raw Tag Team Champions alongside Montez Ford. Tyler Breeze. Sometime around the point of this group photo, the man once known as Mike Dalton had ditched his rather basic character and became the narcissistic, selfie-taking Breeze, which eventually brought him to the main roster. After some futile years on Raw and SmackDown, Breeze returned to NXT in the spring of 2019 and also currently wrestles on 205 Live. Troy McClain. McClain was looking to earn his Masters in Strength and Conditioning at USC when a chance meeting with Rikishi and Gangrel steered him toward professional wrestling. He last wrestled in 2015 and currently hosts several podcasts in the realm of sports and betting, including X and Goal, which is devoted to the reborn XFL. Kassius Ohno. The former Chris Hero had worked in WWE developmental since the early part of 2012, but was released from the company just scant months after this photo was taken. He returned to NXT in late 2016 and remains with the brand today, as the world-traveled veteran works as a player/coach. Jason Jordan. The Indiana University wrestling standout looked to transition well into the world of pro graps, but despite his underappreciated in-ring skill, we'll remember him most as the unlikely son of Kurt Angle. Jordan has unfortunately not wrestled since early 2018 due to a likely career-ending neck injury, but remains with WWE as a backstage producer. Sawyer Fulton. At 6 foot 8 inches tall and weighing in excess of 300 pounds, the shadow-casting Fulton seemed to have an open road ahead in WWE, but was released from the company in November 2017. He now wrestles for Impact Wrestling under the name Madman Fulton, playing the role of heater for Sami Callihan's OVE faction. Enzo Amore. Hard to believe that that's the certified G and bona fide stud there in the photo, with only the spiderweb tattoo on his elbow a solid clue toward identifying him. His career and personal arcs since then have proven newsworthy, to put it mildly, and Enzo still wrestles occasionally, feuding with Brian Pillman Jr. across several indies. Dan Engler. Known better to longtime TNA fans as senior official Rudy Charles, Engler refereed his first match at age 18 in 1996 and has donned the stripes for WWE since 2013. Engler moved up to the main brand shortly thereafter and currently officiates matches on Raw. Danilo Anfibio. Anfibio has been involved in the business for close to 2 decades, working multiple jobs to pay for wrestling training, and after so much strain and personal heartache, finally made the WWE dream a reality. Anfibio is still with WWE today, refereeing matches on the SmackDown brand. Jason Ayers. Rounding out the officiating trio in that part of the photo is Ayers, a referee of over 20 years, going back to when he was 16 years old, with Ring of Honor, Evolve, and Dragon Gate on his resume. Like Anfibio, Ayers is currently a referee on SmackDown. Devon Taylor. A soccer player in her youth, Taylor signed with WWE in 2013, working for NXT as both a wrestler and as a backstage interviewer before being released in the fall of 2015. After leaving wrestling, Taylor co-founded Class & Cano vegan-based skincare products and serves as the operations CEO. Travis Tyler. Tyler never really made it to the next level in NXT, last wrestling for the territory in the summer of 2014 after a long period spent as a stepping stone for others. Wrestling today as Dak Draper, Tyler has found a bit of footing working for Ring of Honor. Aiden English. With an operatic voice and the flourish of a seasoned stage performer, English brought unique characteristics to NXT, lending him an air of villainous pomposity. He hasn't wrestled in close to a year, but English remains with WWE as a color commentator on NXT UK broadcasts. Baron Corbin. The man who would be king was in the midst of parlaying his deep athletic background of football, boxing, and grappling into a future in sports entertainment. You don't have to look too hard to find Corbin, obviously, as he reigns near the top of SmackDown as one of the more prolific villains. Luther Ward. Ward certainly had the look of a ruthless menace, but the Irish-born competitor faded away from the WWE scene rather quickly, last wrestling for NXT in the September of 2013. Not long after, the real-life Joey Cabray founded the popular and influential over-the-top wrestling promotion in Dublin, which is still going strong today. Mason Ryan. His time as the powerhouse of Nexus version 2 had come and gone, and the imposing Ryan wasn't long for WWE after this photo was taken, exiting the company in April of 2014. He last wrestled in late 2015 and currently performs in Las Vegas as part of Cirque du Soleil. Victor. He and Connor's dominance over the NXT tag team title scene seemed to foretell a big run on the main stage, but sadly a half-baked LOD ripoff act combined with poor usage out of the gate spelled doom for the Ascension. Victor received his release from WWE in December 2019 and just recently turned up on the indies. Connor. The Ascension's heavier hitter figured to have a bigger place in WWE than what he got since he was suitably menacing and worked in developmental for years, but alas. Connor's trajectory has followed Victor's, re-emerging on the indies with his partner months after their WWE exodus. Leo Kruger. The deranged South African survivalist gave way to the Adam Rose gimmick in 2014, which didn't get him to the Greek, but rather to the deep undercard of WWE. Rose has teased retirement at different points in the last couple of years, and most recently wrestled Brian Pillman Jr. at an Ohio indie event back in September. Malik Omar. Like many on this list, Omari's time in developmental proved short, wrestling a handful of matches throughout the first half of 2013 before disappearing from NXT's ring. He last wrestled in 2016 as the Zulu Warrior and presently runs a YouTube channel dedicated to fitness and nutrition. Danny Burch. Burch was let go from WWE in the spring of 2014, but turned back up once more the following year, making sporadic NXT appearances before assuming more of a regular role by late 2017. Today, Burch wrestles for NXT, NXT UK, and 205 Live, teaming regularly with Oney Lorcan. Adrian Neville. The man that gravity forgot won the NXT Championship in February 2014, and of the 16 men who have held the title, is the only one no longer signed to WWE. After finally getting his release from WWE in 2018, the man we know better as Pac hit the ground running and is one of the higher tier heels in AEW. Byron Saxton. Saxton was no longer wrestling at the time of the photo and had already migrated into a commentary position on the brand, which he performed in on and off in periods through 2015. Saxton remains a commentator with WWE Today on Monday Night Raw and also hosts select live events for the company. Matt Wichlinski. Wichlinski was hired as a strength and conditioning coach for the Performance Center in March of 2013, having worked previously with Joe DeFranco, the personal strength coach of Triple H. He currently runs the Strength Shop, an intensive training center in Longwood, Florida. Norman Smiley. Fans may know him better as the master of the Big Wiggle, but Smiley is a world-travel veteran wrestler with a quarter-century of experience as an active performer. Smiley became a trainer for WWE Developmental in 2007 and remains in that role with WWE to this day. Sarah Amato. Accomplished women's wrestler Sarah Del Rey had her final match in 2012 and became WWE's first ever female developmental trainer later that year, and was later promoted to assistant head coach in 2015. She remains a top-ranking trainer at the Performance Center today, working alongside Matt Bloom. Canyon Seaman. A former competitor in World Beach Volleyball Championships, Seaman was hired to WWE as a senior director of talent developmental in the spring of 2012, leading one to wonder how that sort of career path works. As of 2020, Seaman remains with WWE in that position. Terry Taylor. With a wealth of experience working pretty much every major American promotion and territory there has ever been, Taylor was brought back to WWE in 2012 to work as a trainer. He remains at the Performance Center today, teaching the finishing class at the PC alongside Shawn Michaels. Brian Duncan. Hired in September of 2011, West Virginia University alumnus Duncan has served the Performance Center as an athletic trainer and physical therapist for many years. At present, Duncan is still at the Performance Center with the job title of Head Athletic Trainer. Robbie Brookside. Brookside retired from the ring in May of 2013 and subsequently became a coach in NXT, bringing 30 years of experience in the business into his teaching. He still remains one of the company's tutors, teaching the beginners classes at WWE's Performance Center. Nick Dinsmore. Known better as Eugene over a few WWE tenures, Dinsmore worked for the company in Florida during this time as a trainer before being let go in October 2014. In his mid-40s, Dinsmore still wrestles today, mostly for promotions in Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota. Joey Mercury. After finishing up as an active wrestler with WWE earlier in the decade, Mercury became a trainer for the company and was later upgraded to main roster producer. Mercury most recently worked for Ring of Honor as a trainer and in creative, but after leaving this past October, he went on to levy many damning accusations of mismanagement against the promotion.